Hey guys, Jamie here, New England Haunter. Today's video is the animated groundbreaker. Let's do this!
Step right up, come on in, join the show, it's about to begin.
We're going to start off cutting the following measurements. The 1x4s will be used for our base for the groundbreaker, and the 1x2s will end up being used for the arms. We'll first start with the 24-inch board. Going to lay that way. The other 24-inch, we're going to just screw them together to look like a T. And that 7-inch piece will be on the back side for stability. And I do highly suggest to drill pilot holes before screwing these together. That 17-inch piece will ultimately be standing up like that. We will have some of that 1x2 section left over, so I did end up cutting two 3.5-inch pieces, and we're going to use that to put that vertical 17-inch piece up. You'll see that in a moment. Now this first 3.5-inch piece of 1x2 is roughly 8 inches back from the front, measured. That 17-inch board is going to go butt right up against that, and then the other 3.5-inch is directly behind that. And don't forget, guys, definitely drill those pilot holes before screwing that in, because that wood will split. You can see that I just zipped in 2 screws underneath into that 17-inch board, and this is what we now have. So this is our base. We are now going to measure and cut our PEX tubing. We need a 14-inch piece, which will be the shoulders, and a 25-inch piece, which will be the spine. And this is how everything will fit together and be connected. And this is how the PEX tubing is going to be connected. You need to drill a hole, connect with a nut and bolt. And as far as that top overhang of the cross goes, I can't give you an exact measurement because that's going to be dependent upon what you're going to use for a prop head for this. So you're going to kind of have to play with that measurement. And here we're going to attach the hinges on our arms. So you have the 10 3/4 inch on the top, 12 inch on the bottom for the forearms. And we're also going to be attaching hinges on the bottom of the 12-inch. You'll see why in just a moment. And again, guys, remember, drill those pilot holes or this wood will split. This is how it should look, guys, so far. Next thing, we are going to connect the shoulders with zip ties. Drilling holes at the top of the boards as well as toward the end of the PEX tubing on both sides. And we're now attaching the zip ties, and just don't over tighten those zip ties. You want room to play. There needs to be movement there. You may end up tweaking it and tightening just a little bit later on, but yeah, be sure not to make those too tight right now. And there are the hinges on the bottom. Those are actually going to connect to that crossbar piece on that T for the base. So now we're going to work on our reindeer motor. We're going to have to replace that smaller plastic arm that comes with these. I have a way to rig a longer one that's going to give us more movement out of it. So for these, I typically use a 1.5-inch corner brace. We have to take a hammer or put it in a vise, and basically you want to straighten it out, and then you want to bend the other end with one hole on it to put it in like an L position. A little archaic, I know. There's really no easy way to do this. And once you remove the plastic arm, you will see there's a hole there. You're just going to take this brace and you're going to attach it with a nut and bolt. You may find that hole doesn't quite line up, and you may have to take a grinder just to grind part of that down. And that was the case for me, so I did have to grind a little bit of that off on the bottom. Now I can attach that nice and tight. You definitely want to get that nice and tight with a small nut and bolt. And once attaching, this is what it should look like. So we're going to attach the motor to the base, And in order to do that, we're going to remove these 2 screws, and we're just going to zip 2 longer screws. I think I'm using 1.5-inch drywall screws. We're going to zip right through those holes right into the back of the base. And where you're attaching this, just make sure that you have about 1 inch clearance from that new arm that we just added to the bottom of the base. Now we're going to take the very bottom of the spine and we're going to connect that to that new arm. We need to drill a hole in the bottom of the spine. Should have done that earlier. And using a bolt with a locking nut, we're going to attach the bottom of the spine into that new arm that we added to the Reindeer motor. I also attached the bottom forearm hinges to the base, as well as the 2-hole strap right below where the shoulders are. Now you can see with full movement, it's starting to look like a ground breaker. And here it is, just a little mock setup here with a corpsed skull that I did another video on. And guys, at this point, you can just throw some creepy cloth on it. You could throw an old shirt. Here's one I have from last year. I had an old vest. And just remember, guys, there is a motor inside there turning. So just be very careful not to catch the fabric in that motor. You could maybe throw a piece of plastic or EVA foam or something kind of in that area, or even staple the clothing down past that on that bottom, wooden base.
Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, like and subscribe. Any questions, please email newenglandhaunter@gmail.com or comment below. We'll see you next time.